Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna, and I actually have an unsolved case for you all today. This is a case that was recommended to me by one of my subscribers named Whitney, a really sweet individual who recommended that I cover this case, look into this case. In my last video, I mentioned that I really wanted to cover some more cases that don't really have that much, what is the word I'm looking for, that don't have that much coverage. And a lot of you have been messaging me on Instagram, so thank you to every single one of you who reached out with recommendations or cases that you feel need to be covered. I can assure you, I do look into every single case, and I do try to find the ones that I am able to put into a video with some useful information or something that I can bring, as an educational aspect, or just something that I can spread awareness about. So thank you so much to everyone who has slid into my DMs with recommendations for cases. Just a reminder, if you do have a case that you would like to see me cover, I do take requests only on my Instagram, which my Instagram name is sunnyshay.v. You can go ahead and message me over there. Following is not required, but that is where I will basically create my list of case recommendations from. Just my usual disclaimer, this is all information that I have found online that I've compiled into a video for educational and entertainment purposes. Sebastian Ochsenius was born on December 3rd, 1993 in Santiago, Chile, to his parents Boris and Teresa Ochsenius. He had one big brother and two big sisters, and when Sebastian was only 1 year old, his family packed up and moved to the United States, where they settled in Gainesville, Florida. This move was huge for the family because in Chile, Boris was not making the type of money that he wanted to make in order to support his family, and moving to the United States presented an opportunity for his family to be better taken care of, for him to make a way to make sure that his family was cared for and financially supported. So when he and Teresa and the kids up and moved to Florida, there were actually a couple family members that were already living in the US that they were able to meet up with. And Boris began working. He had several jobs. He was doing what he had to do to make sure that his family was fed and that they were taken care of and that they had a roof over their head. Eventually, he moved on to starting his own carpet cleaning business, and the beginning of the rest of their lives was started at that time. Gainesville is located in Alachua County in northern Florida, and it's actually known to be one of the safest places to live in Florida. The University of Florida is located there, so there's a lot of young professionals that live in the area, as well as a lot of families. It's a good mix of a suburban and an urban area mixed all into one, and generally the people who live there feel that it is very safe. It's known to be a good place to raise a family. Sebastian, or Tan as his family would call him, was a very kind soul ever since he was born. He was beloved by everyone who knew him. He was a very family-oriented boy who was extremely close to his parents and his siblings, and he also had great relationships with all of his friends as he was growing up. Now, Sebastian was also incredibly smart. He was an AP honor student at Bucholz High School where he lived, and he was bright. When I tell you that this boy was bright, he was ranked third in his class of 525 students. He had a GPA of 4.688. If that's not impressive, I don't know what is. He was very smart, and he had big dreams of one day becoming someone who was influential and would make a difference. And there were multiple sources that talked about Sebastian growing up, and some of them said he wanted to be a lawyer when he was older, while others said that he wanted to be an engineer. Either way, he was 100% capable of achieving whatever career path that he wanted to go down because he was so intelligent and bright, and everyone around him really saw the potential in what he could do as he got older. In addition to being book smart and good in school, Sebastian was just known to be a friendly person. He was very approachable. He was described to be approachable and friendly and kind and giving. And the people who were surrounding him all took a liking to him. His fellow classmates all took a liking to him. And he was described by one of his classmates to be a very kind and calm person, but also someone who was tough. And I think they meant this in the sense that he was nice, but he also had a very thick skin, which is hard at that age. A lot of high schoolers don't have a thick skin. So overall, the attributes that Sebastian had were overwhelmingly just ahead of his time. Like, he was wiser than his classmates, or that he was just wise beyond his years. And it was impressive, the kind of good spirit that he really had being so young. Sebastian really liked sports as well as paintballing, and he was good with his hands. He really liked tinkering with things and taking apparatuses apart and reconstructing them, and that takes smarts. You have to be pretty smart to be able to reconstruct things from pieces, and that's very telling of how smart he is. His GPA alone tells us that, but he was just very bright in many ways that he was very humble about. Sebastian loved the rapper Eminem, and he also really loved the Fast and Furious movies, which are just great movies in general. And he really liked cars, especially fast sports cars. And he was really excited because on his 16th birthday, he was gifted a Nissan sports car by his parents that they had fixed up for him. And it was just a really great time. He was getting ready for his junior year, finishing up his sophomore year, and excited about life. Another activity that Sebastian really enjoyed was playing video games, like a lot of teenagers do. He really enjoyed playing video games, and he used it as a way, obviously just to have fun, but also to connect and communicate with his friends. It was something he really liked to do in his free time. On June 29th of 2010, that is exactly what Sebastian was doing. One of his neighbors actually came over to have a sleepover, and the two boys were up really late that night just playing video games and hanging out, and the rest of the family was asleep at this time. But Sebastian, while he's playing the video games, in the midst of this, it's about 3:40 a.m. He decides that he wants to get up and go to the kitchen for something. So he gets up, he leaves the room, and shortly thereafter, Sebastian's neighbor who's in the house hears what he believes to be a struggle and then multiple gunshots. And Sebastian's father, who was asleep in the room with Sebastian's mother, heard the gunshots as well and got out of bed and ran through the house to see where the noise came from. Unfortunately, he found his son laying on the kitchen floor with multiple gunshot wounds. Sebastian's father proceeded to call the police, and they arrived on the scene pretty quick. They were there within about 4 minutes. By this time, the perpetrator, whoever had shot Sebastian, had already fled the scene, and Sebastian's father, Boris Sr., was holding him in his arms, just sitting there with Sebastian, but he was unfortunately pronounced dead at the scene. The initial shock that the family felt was immense because it just didn't make any sense. Gainesville was a safe place to live. Sebastian was only 16 years old with no known enemies. He had no one that would have wanted to do this to him. And he was getting ready for his senior year. It was the summertime. Like, it was just such an unexpected occurrence that nobody could have possibly ever even imagined mentally preparing for. Police began investigating but had very little to go on at first. So the Alachua County Sheriff's Office is actually the department that began investigating, and they designated about 50% of their police force to work on Sebastian's case. They basically told him, look, put all of your other cases that aren't urgent to the side. We need to put our full energy and effort into figuring out what happened to Sebastian. And they did their best from the beginning, but they had very little to go on. And when Sebastian was found, he had 4 gun wounds. He had wounds in his head, his chest, and his leg. And when they found him, police marked off the crime scene. They spent that entire day of June 29th in the house trying to put together any evidence, trying to figure out just a motive of what may have caused this awful event to happen. All of the doors in the family home were locked, as well as all the windows, except for one door, which was a glass sliding door in the very rear of the family home. And this door was actually the door that led right into the kitchen and is believed to be the entry point of whoever attacked Sebastian. And there was no sign of forced entry anywhere in the house. There was very little evidence that someone had tried to get into the house, so that's why this door was believed to be the primary entrance point. And police were trying to figure out if this was a burglary gone wrong, if this was a robbery gone wrong, what exactly happened. and they weren't sure. But it is possible that it was, and they were trying to theorize if maybe it was in the beginning and that Sebastian had walked in on them at the moment that they tried to sneak into the house and met his untimely demise before they even got the opportunity to take anything, because nothing was missing from the home. The parents' keys were still there to their car. Sebastian's keys to his car was still there. There was no sign that anything actually had been taken. So they're throwing theories out there, just trying to figure out what could have possibly happened and led these people to come into the house to begin with. And after police were able to rule out everyone who was actually in the house at the time of this occurrence, Sebastian's family, as well as his neighbor who he was playing video games with, they were able to conclude, given that the friend said that he got up and went to the kitchen, and it's not like he heard something and went to the kitchen, he just decided in that moment to get up and go to the kitchen. It was fair to say that he just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But police still were unable to narrow down a motive of if they were looking for a specific person and they just chose the wrong house, or again, if this was an attempted burglary or robbery gone wrong. To encourage people to come forward with information, the family started a reward fund. And this reward fund had up to $6,000 in it just within the first week of Sebastian's case. And over time, with donations and multiple private parties donating, it got all the way up to $20,000, which is incredible. And when the fund had just kind of gotten started, the parents requested that anyone who was coming to show condolences to the family or to memorialize Sebastian, they requested that these people donate to the fund instead of buying flowers. It was a very specific request on Sebastian's obituary that the family made, and this was all an effort to bring more awareness to Sebastian's case. Unfortunately, people react when money is involved, so the idea of the reward money was to encourage more and more people to possibly get involved in helping to solve Sebastian's case. The family held memorials for Sebastian in his memory and spent countless hours walking the streets, posting flyers with the reward money, and trying to spread awareness about what happened to Sebastian in hopes that someone would come forward with some information. But also, they really wanted whoever did this to know that they were not going to give up, that they were going to fight for justice until they found it or until they no longer could fight for justice. Like, they were going to do everything they could and walk to the end of the earth to find whoever did this to Sebastian. They wanted this person to know that they were not giving up under any circumstance. And there's actually a wall in Gainesville that's called the 34th Street Wall. The family really encouraged people to come out to help make a memorial in Sebastian's memory. And this wall is pretty cool. It includes memorials for many other people, as well as just some unidentifiable graffiti to me, but it's a long stretch of wall where people go and they memorialize people or they spray paint, regular paint, and the family went out and painted one of the walls in Sebastian's memory, which was really cool. 4 years after Sebastian's death, the sheriff's department still had no answers. They still had no leads, but what they had concluded was that whoever committed this crime was more likely than not a local resident. And they explained to the public that this was a positive thing. And it was positive because if this person lived locally, as time goes on, as years pass, whoever did this most likely communicated with someone in the community who may have communicated with someone else who did this, what happened, why it was done. And people talk, things happen, mindsets change over time. So the chance of somebody coming forward with information becomes greater and greater as the years go on if it was a local resident, which police are fairly certain that it was. In current day, the sheriff's department has said that while they have not made any arrests, they are fairly certain that they know who fired the shots and who was involved in Sebastian's murder. But they can't make an arrest at this time because they don't have sufficient evidence. From my perspective, it sounds like there are multiple people who are believed to be involved in this, and they know who the people are, and they even have narrowed it down to who they think the shooter was. But like I said, without ample evidence, they can't make an arrest, which is extremely frustrating because it's been 11 years and the family still has no answers at all. Police have not gone as far as saying that Sebastian's murder was completely random, but they do believe that whoever was in the house the night that he walked into the kitchen did not plan on encountering Sebastian that night, that this was literally something that happened by chance because Sebastian walked into the room at the wrong moment. Efforts and awareness being spread by the family are in large part to find justice for Sebastian, but they are also partially just wanting people to know Sebastian's name. They don't want his case to go swept under the rug and forever unsolved and for people to not talk about it. On the 3-year anniversary of this situation, his older brother Boris Jr. posted a video to YouTube where he basically said that the case was getting local coverage, but it wasn't getting coverage that he was confident was even getting to all of Gainesville. Like, he felt like there wasn't enough widespread coverage about what happened to Sebastian, and that was their primary focus next to actually getting justice for Sebastian, is people to know what happened to him and for his name to be in people's households so that as word spreads, maybe it can lead to an arrest. Maybe it can lead to justice and to figuring out who did this and why. And he also mentioned in this video that of all murders of children under the age of 18, 65% of them go unsolved, and he really just didn't want Sebastian to be another one of these in this statistic. This case does not have the time and attention that Sebastian and Sebastian's family deserves, and part of why I'm posting this video is just to keep his name in the minds of everyone and to tell his story, but also because every single person who hears about this case can potentially help solve it. Spreading awareness about people who have lost their lives is never ever done in vain. You never know whose ears will hear what you have to say. So whether you are another YouTuber who maybe can potentially cover this case or just someone who can share about what happened to Sebastian, please, I encourage you to do so. It has been 11 long years, but the family has not given up hope. They are still rallying for justice for Sebastian, for people to know his name and to remember what happened to him. And I cannot imagine the level of pain that they're experiencing, and my sincerest condolences go out to the family, sincerely and wholeheartedly. If you have any information that could potentially lead to an arrest and finding justice for Sebastian, I'll have the phone number for the Alachua County Sheriff's Office in the description box below. There were a couple of them online, and I wasn't sure exactly which one to include in the video, so I want to take a little bit more time and put them down below for you to use as a reference. And that is where this video ends. I was so glad that Whitney reached out to me to cover this case, and obviously not glad about the outcome and what happened to Sebastian, but just glad that I am being made aware and that now I have the opportunity to bring the stories of people who need their stories told to more individuals, to people who actually want to hear and want to listen and want to potentially help. If I can be honest and candid for a second, I do get a little bit nervous when talking about cases like this because they haven't been covered before. There is pressure because you want to make sure that the family is respected and that the story of the fallen is told with kindness and respect and that it's told accurately. And with that being said, if there is any information that you feel that I missed, I am always open to being corrected or to you adding to the conversation in the comment section down below. Please, I encourage you to. I'm getting a little emotional because this case is a heavy one, and again, anything involving those under the age of 18 or just children in general or people who haven't had a chance to fully live their lives, it really touches me. So I am a little emotional, but I really wanted to tell you all about Sebastian, and I hope that his family gets justice. Oh gosh, Shayna. It's just a sad world that we live in. Like, it's really crazy that people are out here killing each other. And I talk about true crime, so in some ways I am desensitized to it. But like, sometimes it pulls on my heart, and this is a case that really did that. You may have been able to tell, I feel like I don't have the same spunk that I like to have in my videos, but at the end of the day, while I do have a YouTube channel that I want people to come to feel happy and to feel good, I also do have a social responsibility to spread awareness about people whose cases are hard to listen to and whose cases are underrepresented. and that is why I did this video. So, but without further ado, that is where I'm going to finish this video. You know what I'm gonna say. If you made it this far, you are loyal. You really are, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful morning or afternoon or evening, depending on what time it is when you watch this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.